the actual schedule for the DNC lineup. Are you ready? It's going to be so great. Monday is called For the People. Ironically, For the People involves talking to the person who was defenestrated because he got all of the Democratic votes in the primaries. So For the People, by For the People, they mean for not the people, because literally no one voted for Kamala Harris ever in the history of presidential politics. At no time. Won 0 votes in the presidential primaries of 2020, won 0 votes in the presidential primaries of 2024, and yet here she is, magic and joy and return on interest in terms of. So Monday is called For the People. Do you feel it? Do you feel the joy? So Joe Biden and Dr. Jill, the actual president of the United States, will speak, along with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. I love that they're just shuttling Hillary to Monday night. They're like, okay, everybody on the stage who we hate and want to go away. Hillary Clinton, come on up. There will also be a welcome from Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who has also locked all of the medicine cabinets at the CVS's locally to make sure that nobody steals all of the medications. Things are going great in Chicago. So that is on Monday. Tuesday is a bold vision for America's future. And this will be bringing up former President Obama. Because when I think forward, I think the president who left office in 2016. Also, apparently, Michelle Obama is going to speak as well, because she is a black woman, and that means that she must speak. And they're also having second gentleman Doug Emhoff speak, but not the nanny. And there will be a welcome from rotund Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who will be lowered into the convention hall by crane. Wednesday is a fight for our freedoms. A fight for our freedoms will be led by vice presidential nominee Tim Walz, who shut down the entire state of Minnesota for COVID and also for fun and rioting, because that's what I think of when I think of freedom. But what they really mean is freedom to shtup. That's what they mean. Preceded by former President Clinton, who very much is into the freedom to shtup. That's like his thing, man. Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg will be there too. By the way, you got to feel for the other members of the Biden cabinet. Seriously, you have to feel for them. I mean, their big sin, of course, is not being gay. That's a huge problem. I love that Pete Buttigieg, maybe the most incompetent member of an incredibly incompetent cabinet. They're like, you know what, that guy, he's getting a primetime speech on Wednesday. Why? Well, he does like dudes. I mean, that's a pretty rich resume right there. That dude is very into the dudes. He must speak. You're like, wait, but he's the transportation secretary. Haven't we had like more transportation failures over the course of the last 3.5 years than any time in modern American history? The answer to your question is yes. Wait, didn't that guy go on paternity leave for like 2 months and nobody even noticed because he was so incompetent? The answer to that one is also yes, but does like the dudes. Again, like just imagine that you are Gina Raimondo or something, and you are a member of the Biden cabinet. You're the Secretary of Commerce. And you're like, why don't I get to speak? Well, I mean, Gina, you are straight. So that's going to be a no on that. Thursday is For Our Future. Harris accepts the convention's nomination for president. So boy, is it going to be a cavalcade of stars. So much unity. So much. Other speakers will include Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who will be pitching his new book, Anti-Semitism, How I Did It, and House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Also, I love this. Former President Carter's grandson, Jason Carter, is expected to speak on behalf of his grandfather, who said he hopes to stay alive long enough to vote for Kamala Harris. Great. I mean, you bring up specters of the past like Jimmy Carter. It's going amazing. So the stairs at the delegate entrance will say, "History is in your hands." A quote from Biden's Oval Office address, July 24th, which is just after he was thrown off a moving train. As delegates arrive on Monday ahead of the Biden speech, digital signage in the United Center will say, "History is in your hands," and spread the faith. And by spread the faith, by the way, they do not mean like Christianity or anything biblically related. Spread the faith means 18-foot statues of IUDs. That's what that means. So there's going to be so much unity. Are you excited? And tonight, of course, it leads off with a tribute to the dearly departed Joe Biden. They're going to wheel his body onto stage in its sarcophagus. His mouth will move for a bit, and then he will stumble off the stage, and everyone will treat him as though he is Cincinnatus, who is leaving his leadership position in order to go back to his farm. He is George Washington leaving off his leadership of the Continental Army to go back to Mount Vernon. That is Joe Biden. When in reality, what happened to Joe Biden is that they came up behind him at Ford's Theater and put 2 in the back of the political head. That's what actually happened to Joe Biden, and everybody knows it, and they're all pretending. So tonight, we're going to get Pretend Night. They give him the honorary gold watch after 50 years of service, and then they shuttle him off somewhere quiet to Shady Lane in order to live out his final remaining years, being presided over by Dr. Jill Biden, who will occasionally take his pulse and bore him to death with stories about community college while he sleeps on a beach in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. By the way, he's still the president. Just going to point that out. Still the president all the way until January. So while they wheel out this dead person and say we couldn't have him, I mean, look at him, he's dead. That dude is still the president and is still presumably leading the country. It's going to be amazing. Even Maureen Dowd over at the New York Times is like, by the way, they cooed that guy out. Yes, they did. I know we're supposed to stop talking about that, but Kamala Harris is the current nominee because she cooed out the guy in front of her. That is what happened. Now, you may like it. You may think it's smart politics. It is smart politics, by the way. Doesn't mean it's not pretty scurrilous. Turns out it is a little scurrilous to wait until the dude wins the entire nominating process. He had no one run against him. Kamala could run against him. No one ran against him. And then they just took that nomination and picked it up from him after he failed in debate against Donald Trump. And then they handed it directly to her. And then they said that she is such a wonderful and joyous candidate that she didn't even need to run. That's how great she is. She didn't even need to run. That's how good she is. Maureen Dowd says, we head to Chicago on a wave of euphoria, exuberance, exultation, excitement, and even, you might say, ecstasy. Wow, she got very into the alliteration right there. It's going to be a glorious coronation, except that everybody's mad at one another. Yeah, this is the dirty secret. Top Democrats are bristling with resentment, even as they are about to try to put on a united front at the United Center in the Windy City. A coterie of powerful Democrats maneuvered behind the scenes to push an incumbent president out of the race. It wasn't exactly a Julius Caesar in Rehoboth Beach, but it was a tectonic shift, and of course, there were going to be serious reverberations. Even though it was the right thing to do, because Joe Biden was not going to be able to campaign, much less serve as president for another 4 years, in a fully vital way, it was a jaw-dropping pooch. She is correct. How could Biden not be hurt that the Democratic convention went from 4 days of sitting Shiva, as James Carville put it, to a joyful romp with Kamala atop the ticket? Democrat after Democrat who had been close to Biden before conspiring to push him out had to confess to cable anchors they had not been able to talk to the president who was sulking in his tent. Party leaders whitewashed the coup by ornately extolling Biden. James Clyburn told CNN Biden had a record no president of the United States could ever match. Pelosi proposed that Biden's face should be carved on Mount Rushmore. Despite the grandiose flattery, Joe, Jill, and Hunter were not fooled or appeased. That is true. That is true. Now, all the talk about how there is going to be a big kumbaya moment here, I don't know if it's going to go quite that way, but they're going to try and paper it over with a bunch of false joy. So you have Jen Psaki, former press secretary for Joe Biden, and Amy Klobuchar, who likes to throw binders at her staff, suggesting that they are shedding tears of joy over Joe. There will be tears of joy tonight for Joe Biden. I mean, the tears of joy are that he's not your nominee. Because if you're a nominee, you'd be losing right now. And instead, you decided to put up a diverse cipher of whom zero questions will be asked and zero questions will be answered, because every time she answers a question, she sounds like somebody who stumped her face on a brick when she was 2 years old. Anyway, here is Jen Psaki and Amy Klobuchar.
You've known him a long time. You've worked closely with him. I wanted to ask you about, what do you think the hall is going to be like tomorrow night when he speaks?
There is going to be so much love for Joe Biden.
So much love.
There's going to be tears of joy
it's
when he walks into that hall. And what he has done, and I love that a major focus of this is going to be on democracy. He literally saved our democracy in the U.S.
He saved our democracy in the U.S., says Amy Klobuchar. Do you mean he saved our democracy by being forced out of the nomination that he won in a democratic series of elections? Because that's the read. It's not just going to be interior, backstabbing, behind the scenes. By the way, if Kamala Harris loses, Joe Biden is going to have the best time. Like, seriously, that dude is prepping. He would love nothing better than for Kamala Harris to lose. If Kamala Harris loses, Joe Biden is going to be able to say, I told you you should have left me in place. And now she lost and you forced me out. So that's on you. It's your fault. Like, wait, the recriminations will be delicious if somehow Kamala Harris manages to lose this election. Even if she wins the election, he's just going to be seen as the transitional guy who somehow stopped Donald Trump in 2020 and then got his ass handed to him by 84-year-old Nancy Pelosi and all of the chief donors in the Democratic Party.
Are you tired of the lies and the twist of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.